Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back.
This is VSiN's College Football Betting Podcast. Welcome in, everyone. Another edition of the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast. 3 episodes each and every week. Jonathan Von Tobel with the Lines Revealed show on Sundays at 2 p.m. You can hear it live on VSiN. If you miss it, it'll be in your feed then on late Monday night, early Tuesday morning in your feed. Myself, Adam Burke, react to the week that was, take a look at some updated power ratings. But the big kahuna comes in on Thursdays. That, of course, Matt Youmans. Follow him on Twitter, at Matt Youmans 247. Mr. Youmans, another week is here. Ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, Tim, I don't appreciate the fat jokes. Okay?
You like going to Hawaii, so, big kahuna.
I'm just kidding.
How many times? What do you, like 3-4 times a year to Hawaii?
I would say 3 tops.
Man.
3 tops. I'm hoping to get out there for the Maui Invitational.
Ooh, back in Maui, finally.
I'll tell you what, really good Maui Invitational field this November and next November. Are we talking college basketball or football?
I mean, if you want to venture into college basketball, we could do that, but let's get it rolling. We don't like wasting any time. Maybe you talk a little bit of college basketball. Let's get to
the main course.
All right, College Game Day will be in Clemson, South Carolina, Matt. And before we hit air, you look at me and go, are we falling for Clemson again this week? They are a 7-point favorite, night game against NC State. Yes, you and I fell for it last week. I laid the 6.5. Regardless, it didn't cash, and we almost were fortunate there with a 2-point conversion in double overtime. Doesn't ultimately come home. This is a game, though, a little revenge on the mind. NC State did beat Clemson last year. Clemson's offense showed some life, but the biggest issue for me, Matt, and why I'm not touching this game, actually twofold. I don't know what the Hurricane's going to do. Ramification-wise, we've seen the total go down to 43 with the pending Hurricane Ian coming up the eastern seaboard there. And secondly, I was thoroughly disappointed by the defensive effort from Clemson. I thought the reason they would win that game and cover is as how we talked about. I thought they would dominate the trenches. Not the case. Their corners got exposed. I am off this game. However, if forced to play it, I probably would side with Clemson because NC State, I wasn't buying into the preseason hype. And so far to this point, have they really proved anything? They should have lost to East Carolina. Texas Tech game was kind of and then they played Charleston Southern and UConn.
I'm with you. I'm disappointed in the Clemson defense, first and foremost. And, Tim, when you need a 2-point conversion to go your way, you either need it converted or you need it stopped. Does it ever happen?
No,
I think
never.
I'm like 0-7 on 2-pointers this year. If I need one to cover the number, it doesn't happen.
Well, think about week 1. I had App State gave them out on the podcast. We gave them out money line. It closes 2.5. We just need a little dump out to the wide receiver. Goes sailing over his head. Could have got another one to force overtime. Not to be. So, yes, I'm with you. Never happens.
That was bad. It is a revenge game. I'll give DJ credit. He played much better. He's got his back to the wall right now. A lot of people calling for Cole Klubnik, quarterback change at Clemson. I thought DJ played one of his better games a week ago. But the Clemson defense, big disappointment. I was on the fence on Clemson last week. A lot of sharp guys I know were laying it with Clemson. So I played it and regretted it. We won. Clemson wins by 6, laying 7. I'm probably not going to get suckered in. I've been a little bit disappointed in this NC State team so far, too. A little inconsistent. Devin Leary last year put up incredible numbers. I thought NC State had the potential to be a legit top 10 team this year. I don't think the Wolfpack had played to that level. So probably going to be a stay-away game.
Yeah, and I'll give a quick shout out to our friend, the Bear, Chris Felica. You and I are on the same train of thoughts. Do not tease college football games.
No, you don't do that.
Clemson, Florida State, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Wisconsin, all sitting at 6.5, 7. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Just stay away. Just if you want to play a game, lay the number, but don't get fancy in some teasers. That's just a PSA for me. Hey, if you win and you cash your ticket, you want to send me a tweet, that's fine. But I would not, over a regular basis, Matt, playing teasers in college is a losing proposition.
Well, this is a pro tip, right? Because seriously, in the NFL, the games are played tighter to the number, and you got years of proof of this, and players can get an advantage playing teasers in the NFL. A lot of times you can win both ways on the teaser. Mm-hmm. in the NFL. In college football, it's a lot more unpredictable, a lot more volatile. And, you see 17, 20-point favorites go down on a weekly basis, which I've talked about this. In the NFL, when a 7-point favorite goes down, everybody's shocked. Stunning upset. You have 20-point upsets go down in college football every week. There's not the same value in playing college football teasers. Yeah, you can do the wrong thing and get away with it. It happens in every area of life. You could drive 105 on the interstate and get away with it. I wouldn't recommend doing that all the time. Eventually, you're going to get caught, and it's going to be a bad strategy long term. And that's the case with college football teasers. If you do it consistently, you're going to pay for it. It's a mistake.
Well, and I think the biggest thing for me, and you've been betting longer than me because you're older than me. You're really old.
Yes.
Old and fat joke. Do you like that? I'm
That's
2 for 2.
That's okay. I get it.
But if the books are adjusting, Matt, then you've got an edge, right? Books have adjusted teaser prices in the NFL. Yeah. You know what books haven't done? Adjusted teaser prices in college. No. They want them. Bring them on, they'll say.
They don't want the teasers in the NFL. They do want them in college. Hey, parlay as many games as you want, too.
Yeah. Oh, you want it to be 6? What about 7? All right, let's keep it rolling. A Big 12 game, and Oklahoma coming off a loss. Good call by you last week on Kansas State as they win outright. Adrian Martinez, I think Kansas State fans are saying, where was that guy against Tulane? Because he was a different person last week. He was phenomenal.
Where was the entire Kansas State team the previous week against Tulane? It's one of those matchup situations, Tim, and that's why I love to look at the history between teams and conference play. Chris Kleiman at Kansas State had beat Oklahoma as a 24 and a 27-point underdog, and then last year lost by 6 as a 14-point dog. For some reason, certain teams just match up well in these conference series, and K-State obviously has got Oklahoma's number under this Coach Kleiman.
Yeah, we'll get to the K-State situation a little bit later on, but Oklahoma bounce back spot, noon kickoff, actually 11 a.m. local down there in Fort Worth, Texas. TCU 3-0. This is their conference opener. They're a 6.5-point favorite. This is another one of those lines, Matt, that seems a little interesting to me. You look at TCU, haven't been tested all that much, even though you beat SMU in an impressive fashion, but the Colorado game, Colorado's an absolute disaster. If we've pointed out on this show and on the network, anywhere you turn, they played a Tarleton in week number 2.
Right.
Sure, whatever that is. Does Oklahoma bounce back? I know Oklahoma was a team you played their season 1 total under 9.5, so that was a good result for you last weekend with the Kansas State outright victory. Oklahoma 6.5-point road favorite on Saturday in Fort Worth.
Yeah, and Oklahoma's got some positive history in this series against TCU, kind of the reverse of the K-State situation. I like the Sooners a little bit here, Tim, but it's not the type of game I want to play. With the Texas game on deck, I always think that's a tricky handicap when you're looking at the Longhorns and Sooners when they play each other the next week. You would think you want to bet against those teams this week with the Red River game on deck, but I'm probably just going to stay away from. There are some. Chris the Bear Felica tweeted this morning about some. He does a great job with this every week, tweeting out some ATS facts across the college football landscape, and he had one on Oklahoma today talking about the TCU series. And trying to pull up the number, Oklahoma has covered 6 of the last 7 against TCU. 5 of the wins by at least 18 points in cases where the Sooners were single-digit favorites. Credit to the Bear for that fact, but again, it's kind of like last week. All the negative trends against the Sooners pointed to K-State. This week, you got positive trends pointing to the Sooners against TCU. That's going to be a stay-away game for me.
Staying in the state of Texas with an Oklahoma team coming to town, a short spread here. Oklahoma State visiting Baylor. Oklahoma State, the Pokes coming off a bye. Haven't really been tested all that much this year. Beat Central Michigan, Arizona State, who has since fired Herm Edwards, and then Arkansas Pine Bluff. Baylor has been tested. Baylor went on the road to Provo, lost that game. Last week, they played Iowa State on the road, pulled that win out. So a 3:30 kickoff Eastern. This game will air on Fox. A revenge game. Remember, last year, this was the Big 12 championship game. Oklahoma State, I should say, inches away, Matt, from maybe being in the college football football playoff. Instead, they had to go to the Fiesta Bowl, and they came back and beat Notre Dame, much to my chagrin. Baylor is a 2.5 point home favorite in this spot. I know you're a big Dave Aranda guy. Is this a spot to maybe play a short money line price with Baylor at home?
Yeah, I like Baylor a little bit. I think he's a superior coach. I like to play the better defense. I think the better defense typically controls games like this. And not just to your chagrin, mine too, because I bet the Irish in that bowl game.
So did I.
And woke up New Year's Day with a hangover. Checked the score. Notre Dame's up big. Felt a lot better.
28-7 at halftime. Not that. 28-7 in the second quarter. Not that I remember.
Yeah, it didn't go so well in the second half.
No.
But I lean Baylor here. It's not one of my top plays.
Well, you mentioned look-ahead spots, and I think next week, with everything that happened this offseason between Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher, and the fact that Texas A&M beat Alabama last year, it leads me to this next game. Alabama on the road at Arkansas. There were 17 and a hook out there. There actually is a 17 and a hook still out there, mostly 17 in the market here in favor of the Crimson Tide. Arkansas coming off a gut-wrenching loss. I know you were on the Razorbacks. I don't know how they lose that game.
Well, the good thing is I had Arkansas plus 2.5. So.
Oh, there you go. So you get the win.
That's one of those things where early in the week, and Brian Edwards took a loss on this in the Circa Friday Football Invitational. He lost 4 games by a total of 4 points.
Oh.
And it's terrible when things work out that way for you. But the Arkansas game was 2.5 for the first half of the week last week. It started to drop to 2 by Thursday, 1.5 by Friday, and of course it lands on 2.
Oh, brutal. Absolutely brutal, especially when I don't know the last time, maybe if ever, I've ever seen a field goal that hit the top of the goalpost, but that's what happened. And
well, when's the last time you saw a quarterback
Superman
dive into the end zone from the 3-yard line?
That was the first two.
You saw that last week by Arkansas.
But Arkansas now at home. The Woo Pig Suey faithful will be ready to go. Sam Pittman. Sam Hartman has not transferred for this game. It still will be KJ Jefferson. But mentioning another Bear nugget, as he likes to point these out, he said, is Alabama on the road a thing? Well, over the last 5 road games, the Tide have played well. You've cashed easily if you backed the home team. Bama has won just 1 of its past 5 road games by more than a field goal, and 2 of its 4 wins in that span saw the Tide win late, despite being an average of an 18.5 point favorite. So, Matt, that leads me to this. Arkansas catching 17. I think Alabama's shown a little bit of vulnerability. Do they have the big-time playmakers? That's also a question. Taking the points with Woo Pig here?
Tim, put me down for a play here. I've got Arkansas plus 17.5, but this is not one of my favorites. It's just I'm going to say like a half-unit play.
Okay.
And the reason why I have some, and I think you'll be on board with this, I got some serious fundamental concerns with the Arkansas defense defending the pass.
Yeah.
And that's going to be an issue against Alabama much more than it was against Texas A&M. A&M, Max Johnson's a mediocre passing quarterback, and Alabama's got an explosive passing attack. Yes, I agree with what you said and what the Bear put out there. I think Alabama on the road's a thing too, and that's why I was convinced late that week. I didn't do it until the night before. But Alabama laying the 20.5, 21 at Texas got to the point where you had to look at Bama's recent results on the road, and aside from the blowout at Mississippi State, that's not good. So it's not the same team. It's a totally different team, Nick Saban's team on the road, than it has been at home. So I'd actually like Arkansas because the Hogs can run the ball. KJ Jefferson's a hell of an athlete. If you can avoid the costly fumbles like you had last week, Tim, that's a game I felt like when you watched it, you kind of felt like Arkansas should have won by 10 points and found a way to lose it by 2. But my biggest concern here is the Arkansas pass defense, which was something everybody was talking about, how bad it was before the A&M game, but A&M can't throw the ball, so now it's not a topic. Don't forget about how bad that pass defense is.
This was pointed out last week. Sam Pittman at Arkansas is an underdog. If you, depending on how you want to include last week, it closed 1.5, so it was a loss ATS, but it opened 2.5. however you want to preface it, but his last 16 games as an underdog at Arkansas, 12-4 ATS if you got the 2.5, 11-5 ATS if you closed with the 1.5.
Let's call that one a push.
Yeah, so 11-4-1. And he's won 5 times as an outright dog. And I do think there is a little bit of a look ahead here for Alabama, knowing that Texas A&M game, the team that beat him in the regular season, all this smack being talked. I want to hit on Texas A&M, Mississippi State a little bit later on in the podcast. But another top 15 matchup in the SEC, Matt, and we see the return of Kentucky running back Chris Rodriguez after his suspension for off-the-field issues. So that's a big boost there for the Wildcats. They're on the road at Ole Miss, and they're catching a touchdown. And this almost feels like a dog. I don't know if this is a dog with fleas, but this feels like a trap. You know, we know how well Mark Stoops and Kentucky thrive in this underdog role, and they've been tested already with a win on the road at Florida. Now they get Chris Rodriguez back, and they're still catching a touchdown. Something seems off by this line. A noon Eastern kick. It'll be on ESPN. Anything jump out at you in this game?
I can't lay the points here with the Rebels. This line's a little bit too high. Really, we have not seen Jackson Dart in that passing game take off like I thought it was going to. Lane Kiffin's been running the ball. It's kind of an uncharacteristic offensive attack here by Kiffin and Ole Miss this season. I'm not sure if he has enough confidence in Jackson Dart up to this point. Eventually, I think that kid's going to be a hell of a quarterback. We haven't seen him put up those type of numbers so far, but he's been a good dual threat quarterback to this point. I lean Kentucky here, actually getting 7. Like you said, with Rodriguez back. And, hey, Will Levis, right now there's a lot of hype that Will Levis is going to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft in the spring. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I have my doubts about that. But you've got an elite college quarterback going in here, catching 7. I think you have to consider it.
Yeah, and you know, Kentucky, as I mentioned, has thrived in the underdog role.
Stoops is a hell of a coach.
I believe they've won 6 of the last 13 games. They've been an underdog outright. And, you know, last week was a clear look-ahead spot for Ole Miss, but they struggled against Tulsa, and Tulsa lost their starting quarterback in that game. So I've got some questions about Ole Miss. Now, they put up 31 points in the first half. They beat Georgia Tech. They struggled with Troy. So I don't know if we know really anything about Ole Miss to this point. I know you preseason were pretty high on them.
Ole Miss win total over 7.5. I think there's I feel pretty good about that.
Well, if you're a 7-point favorite against Kentucky, who's a top 10 team, you should be in pretty decent shape there. So, I would be Kentucky or pass, but something's kind of spooking me by that one. All right, let's go to the land that top 5 teams die or struggle, and that would be Kinnick Stadium. Number 4 Michigan, who did not get home last week against Maryland. The steam was certainly on the right side because that thing opened 20, I think closed 17, and the Terps ultimately lose by a touchdown. Blake Corum did run all over Maryland in that game. Michigan at Iowa, big noon kickoff. I think, 11 a.m. local time there in Iowa City. And I want to point out the stat that was circulating across social media all week, which is the last 6 top 10 or top 5 teams that have gone into Iowa. 5 of them lost outright, and none of them have covered. So,
in fact, Penn State, the one team to win, won on the last play of the game, if you remember that.
Yep.
But, here's a footnote to that, Tim. This is by far the worst Iowa team. Going back how many years?
I'll say, I'm going to go on a limb, Matt, and say that the 2017 Iowa team that put 55 on Ohio State, I don't think that team's walking through the door on Saturday. However, to their credit, they did go to the vaunted, Stadium in Piscataway, and they got a cover against Rutgers there.
That's one of those you like to say embrace the stink. That was one of those lines last week that stunk.
Yeah.
And the Hawkeyes got there. Also over the total. How about that?
So they've covered 2 in a row. They covered against Nevada. Everybody said, well, how are they even scoring 24 points? Somehow, some way. They got to 27 against Nevada. I would look at the points here. I took a little, it's not one of my official plays or write-ups for VSiN.com, but I took the 10.5. I texted you earlier this week, Matt, and I said, in Iowa, weird things happen. And and Michigan, look.
You talking football or just in general?
Yeah, just in general.
Okay.
Week 1, week 2, week 3, Colorado State, disaster of a program. Hawaii, maybe worse than Colorado State, and then UConn. So I'm high on Michigan. I have them right now as my 4th best team in the country, but I do think Iowa has a chance to keep this thing close, so I'll take a little bit on that 10.5.
Too. It's a lot about defense, and Iowa trying to just run the ball, make this a grinder, kind of like a mud wrestling match. It's about defensive schemes, and Iowa being able to hold the score down in this game and stay competitive. And Michigan, by the way, taking a step up in class. It's not a huge step up in class, but when you're going on the road in the Big Ten in this type of environment, Tim, it's not the same as playing the 3.5 cupcakes at the Wolverines. Maryland's not a cupcake, but the Wolverines were big favorites in that game. They were laying 17.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 4 home games to open the season where you're expected to roll, and you did roll in 3 of those games. Now all of a sudden you have to go on the road into a hostile environment, and I think it's not going to be surprising if Michigan has to kick a late field goal or score a late touchdown to win this game. I've kind of talked myself into this as the week has gone on, and DraftKings, South Point, a couple other places got 11, so I took 11 with Iowa, but this is similar to my Arkansas plus 17.5 play. It's a half unit play.
All right, final game of the main course before we get to the spicy matchups. Wake Forest at Florida State. This is a top 25 showdown, and Jordan Travis returned last week, and he continues to excel. I don't know what in God's name is up with Boston College. Their offensive line is a disaster, and Florida State went in, led 37-0 in the third quarter against Boston College. So Florida State now, this is, it's almost, when you look at a top 25 matchup, Matt, and you see a Florida State and a 7 by them, this is rarefied air for this era of Florida State football. I thought Wake Forest showed well. Do they have enough in the tank to back up last week's performance at home, going into a double overtime against Clemson? Is this a letdown spot going into Tallahassee? Florida State, I was surprised to see the market open 4 at Circa on Sunday, and by the end of the day, Matt, was 7 in favor of the Seminoles. Anything you like here in Florida State, Wake Forest? It has actually ticked back down at some spots to 6.5.
I actually thought about taking the 7 with Wake.
Still available out there.
I have thought about it, Tim. I haven't done that yet, and I'm not sure I'm going to do it. I haven't really had a chance to watch these teams. I like to watch as many teams as possible. I haven't had a chance to watch these teams the last couple of weeks, and I'm probably going to stay away as of right now, so I don't want to say something I regret, but I was leaning Wake with the 7, but no play right now.
Yeah, and I'll say this, Johnny Wilson, who was just unstoppable against Louisville, looking at the performance that the Clemson wide receivers had, I think he could have a big game. Didn't really do much against BC, but when needed against Louisville, he stepped up and had 7 catches for $149. So I'm with you. No play here in those main games. Only thing I have... I've
upgraded Florida State about 3.5 points in my power rating from preseason.
Yeah, they've been really impressive. Mike Norvell has done a quality job, and fortunate to get that week 1 win, but to win on the road at Louisville with a backup quarterback, I was stunned by that. To rise to the occasion, and they're a lot better with Jordan Travis. All right, that's going to do it for the main course. On to Matt's favorite segment,
spicy matchups.
All right, Matt, I think you have a play on this next game. Oregon State was one of my plays last week. I had to call in some favors to figure out a way to get this game on my television last Saturday night. Made it happen. Watched every second of Oregon State and USC. I was a little, I don't want to say disappointed. I was surprised that Oregon State's offense couldn't get more going against USC. I was happy with the outcome. I did have a little on the money line, so I was hoping that the Beavers could pull that game outright, and they were up late in that game. The defense was solid against Caleb Williams and company. Now a new test, and similar to the game we just talked about, right? Wake Forest goes to double overtime at home, loses to Clemson. Oregon State, what a crowd it was in Corvallis, right there, leading in the fourth quarter. Jordan Addison sneaks into the end zone, and they lose by 3. Now you go on the road to Elevation, to Utah. Where are you in this game with Oregon State at Utah?
And USC just had a couple better athletes. That's what it came down to. Made a play to win a game.
I didn't think Caleb Williams, to be honest.
He wasn't very good.
Wasn't very good in that game.
16 for 36.
Yeah.
And, I did the Pac-12 preview for the VSiN College Football Betting Guide, and I thought there was maybe only a few defenses in the Pac-12 that could slow down USC. Oregon State's won. Utah's obviously won. Beavers did a great job. They led that game until 1:15 to go. And, Tim, if you had told me before the game that Chance Nolan's going to throw 4 picks, I would say, let me off these Oregon State bets.
No, thanks.
No, I don't want these. I don't want this money on the Beavers. He throws 4 picks, and they still have the lead late. So I think you have to give the Beavers some credit for that. Now, when I look at this Utah game, too, the top receiver, who's a tight end for Utah, Brent Keith.
Yeah, he's out.
He's out for the season. Kyle Whittingham called that, quote, a big blow to the offense.
Is Oregon State, they're missing their tight end, too, though, the big boy.
Musgrave.
Yeah.
Luke Musgrave is out as well. So you could say those cancel each other out, but Oregon State's kind of had
figured it out. Yeah.
I don't know if they figured it out.
Yeah, but they've had to deal with it. I guess is a better way to put it.
Deal with it the last couple weeks. 10.5 is higher. I made the number here 7.5. So I'm taking a little perceived extra value on my part with the road dog here. Oregon State, don't forget, won on the road at USC last year and dominated the Trojans at the Coliseum. This team can win on the road in the Pac-12, and Jonathan Smith's been a great underdog coach, Tim. You know the trends. I was on Oregon State with you last week, and I'm going to stick with the Beavers here. I think this is – Utah's kind of been coasting against some pretty weak opposition since the Florida game. And I think this is going to be another one of those games that should go down to the wire. I'd be disappointed if the Beavers are not really competitive here.
Yeah, this game, 11, I think maybe noon local up there in Salt Lake City.
Kind of helps, too, that it's not a night game.
Not a night game there. This will be on the good old Pac-12 network. All right, a game that I think you and I both have a play on. This is a game that I did write up for vsin.com. 4 p.m. Eastern, SEC Network, 17th ranked Texas A&M against Mississippi State. Already talked about the potential of a look-ahead spot there for Alabama. I would say it's a look-ahead spot, maybe a little bit for Texas A&M. You could say it's a letdown spot. They just beat their rival in Arkansas. They've had back-to-back top 15 wins, but maybe you could put an asterisk by one of those because their win 2 weeks ago against Miami, Matt, doesn't look so great right now because they got absolutely thumped by Middle Tennessee State.
How about Miami, by the way? Tyler Van Dyke has been benched. His roommate, the best receiver on the team, did not play against Texas A&M. The Hurricanes lose as 25-point home favorites to Middle Tennessee.
First victory.
But you're right. All of a sudden, that Texas A&M win over Miami doesn't look so impressive, does it?
So I look at Mississippi State in this spot. Last week, they kind of got to work out some kinks. They played Bowling Green. They won going away. Will Rogers threw 6 touchdowns in that game. Will Rogers, his third year in this system under Mike Leach, wasn't the full-time starter 3 years ago. He's been completing 74% of his passes, Matt. I knew they do have the loss to LSU, a game that you were on a couple weeks ago here on the podcast. I really like Mississippi State in this spot. Now, it's up to 3.5. I did lay the 3.5. I got a little creative, and I'll get to the other half of a money line parlay a little bit later on the show. But I do like Mississippi State here in this spot. This thing opened as low as 1 at some spots in town. I wish I had gotten in early under a field goal. It is a relatively low total. But you look at Texas A&M, Matt. Offensively, they're averaging 321 yards per game. That's 107th nationally. Yeah. But if you remove their season-opening win against FCS Sam Houston State, they're averaging 262 yards per game. In their last 3 games, Matt, against App State, a loss at home, Miami, and Arkansas, they have been outgained by an average of 112 yards per game. Those 3 opponents have accrued 32 more first downs. And to add insult to injury, Texas A&M doesn't have a whole lot of playmakers. Aniyah Smith, their leading wide receiver, done for the year with a leg injury. I really like Mississippi State here in this spot. I think it's a tricky situational spot for the Aggies. And those cowbells are going to be ringing all game long. Give me the Bulldogs, and I will lay the 3.5, and I'll put it in a money line parlay, too, with another spot here, too.
I was going to say, by the hook.
Yeah. It's a low enough total. Would you say, Matt, let me ask you this, because we talked about teasers. Buying points in college usually isn't the best route to go. However, with a total of around 45, would you say buying the hook here would be a wiser investment than normal?
Well, like you said early in the show, I'm much older than you, and I've bet a lot more games over the years, and nothing ticks you off more than when you lay 3.5 on a game and the team wins by 3.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a quick story. Before the Super Bowl last year, the opener on the Rams-Bengals game, I think, was 3.5, and it went up to 4 and 4.5, and JVT runs into me outside the studio before the show on Monday, and he's like, I laid 3.5 with the Rams. I said, why'd you do that? Don't lay the hook, and stuff like that. Never lay the hook on 3. I never recommend buying the hook unless it's on 3 in football. Buy the hook, okay? Because you're going to lose a lot of games, and mathematicians might dispute the strategy. But believe me, you're going to have. It's worth it for the peace of mind too, because you hate having the 3 in the hook hanging out there when the game's in the balance. What happened in that playoff game, Tim? The Rams won by 3. The Rams, in fact, won 3 consecutive playoff games by exactly 3 points.
They did, yes, they sure did.
I laid 3 here with by the hook with Mississippi State. You set a bet. It's a sandwich spot. You're off the Arkansas game. You got Alabama on deck. Your top wide receiver and NFL prospect, Aniyah Smith, just went down for the season. It's already an A&M offense that's anemic. And I don't think, as much as we brag about, or some people brag about how tough this Aggies defense is, has it been tested by a really good passing offense yet? I would say no.
Well, and they gave up a ton of yards to Arkansas.
Right. They
got outgained by 200-plus yards to Appalachian State. They just ran. I mean, Cameron Peoples is still running down there in College Station. So they find ways. I would say they're a bit fortunate. I mean, to win a game on a missed field goal, to get a scoop and score for 80-plus yards. And we talked about turnover regression. Didn't work out at USC. They were plus 4 in that game. Still did not cover, thankfully. But I think the luck kind of runs out here. They don't have a good offense. Quarterback situation. Jimbo's just laying into Max Johnson any opportunity he can get. Yeah, I feel like this is an opportunity for Mississippi State. 0-1 to start the season.
Don't you like it better, too? The A&M was lucky to win that game against Arkansas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
So it's a better situational spot now to play Mississippi State.
And I'll say this. You mentioned this, too. I love, and it's not blind, but I love when you've got a number 17 team catching points. People who don't invest as much time as you and many of our listeners say, well, the ranked team's catching points. Yeah, I'll just give me the ranked team. You're like, be careful there. So I want to jump to a game that I actually paired this with, and maybe it's a risky situation. I think, I don't want to call it luck. It's been one of the better stories, Matt, but I paired Mississippi State with Iowa State. Now, Iowa State's coming off a loss. They travel to Kansas. Kansas has been the darling of the season. Everyone's, stomping their fists and, saying, why aren't they ranked? They should be ranked. I think Kansas should be a ranked football team right now. They haven't played a defense like Iowa State yet. I think Iowa State's going to be hungry in this spot. Kansas has covered 7 straight games. This line is at 3. If I had to guess right now, this will be one of the more public dogs of the week in Kansas. So
when's the last time you could say that?
Exactly. So I put those two together. Maybe it's a bit risky considering Iowa State's a road team, but plus 165 was what I got on a money line parlay, Mississippi State and Iowa State. Because I missed the 3.5. I still did take a little on the 3.5, but I put more on Mississippi State, Iowa State money line because we'll see. We'll see if Kansas now the attention is on them, right? They won that game against Duke last week. They won it by 8. If you laid took the 7.5, that was unfortunate there for you with the Blue Devils. But yeah, this is in a series, and you mentioned it recently about Oklahoma having success against TCU. How about this? They have the last 7 games Iowa State and Kansas have played. Now, you can say this about a lot of teams who play Kansas.
Okay.
But Iowa State has won by an average of 28 points per game. They've dominated this series. So I'm going to put those two together for a plus 165 money line parlay.
Yeah, if I had to play this game, I would play Iowa State. And I'm not a Matt Campbell guy necessarily. But I think this is one of those crashing back to earth spots a little bit for Kansas. like you said, a lot of media hype all of a sudden. And who cares about the rankings, really? I think it's a big deal maybe for some of the people in Kansas to say, hey, we're ranked for the first time since the fat man, Mark Mangino, was here. By the way, he was a hell. I say that out of admiration.
They went to the Orange Bowl.
Mark Mangino did one of the best coaching jobs of all time at Kansas.
They went to the Orange Bowl. They were number 2 in the country at one point.
And now you have
Lance Leipold.
Lance Leipold doing a hell of a job, and he's probably going to move on after this year. But, man, what a great job he's done in Kansas. I think when you look at this number, it tells you to play Iowa State.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with what you're doing here.
All right. Friday night game. We don't usually get to Friday night games, but this one, it's another one of those lines that I would deem a little stinky. I really like Washington. I took a 12-1 on them mid-season, not preseason. Once I saw how they were playing, and you look at the schedule, no USC, no Utah, I said they could show up here in Las Vegas. And if they're here in a 12-1 ticket, hedging opportunity aplenty. Washington is on the road at UCLA. It's a late-night game on Friday, the type of games that Matt and I love to sit back and enjoy, even though you'll be on the air. But why is this number down to 2.5 at some spots? UCLA has not been tested. The toughest team they played was South Alabama. They were fortunate to win that game, Matt. Is there any home field advantage at the Rose Bowl? I would say no.
Not much.
So Washington, under Kalen DeBoer, anywhere Kalen DeBoer goes, he covers. Eastern Michigan, Indiana, Fresno State, now at Washington, he is a covering machine. This line is scaring me. Why is it 2.5? Only because I think the world is going to see a Washington team on sale in their eyes.
Circus Sports opened this 1. I know Mitch Moss at VSiN. Mitch Moss jumped on Washington -1.
Don't blame him.
I watched a popular show on VSiN hosted by Tim Murray this week, and I think it was Brad Powers who came on and said, you don't even have to wait until Saturday to catch this ticket.
He did.
Bet Washington, right?
Yeah.
And Washington was up to 3.5. Why is it now back down to 2.5?
I don't know.
Anyway.
There are some threes out there still, though, too, if you like UCLA.
So the Bruins have played one of the weakest schedules in the country to this point, and had to squeak by South Alabama on a last-second field goal at home. But look at.
And let's not forget.
I don't even want to say schedule strength because there's no strength in.
And
UCLA
remember,
schedule.
week 1, one of the worst beats. I don't know if worst beats. It was a bad beat if you had Bowling Green in that game because they were down to Bowling Green in the third quarter.
No doubt about it. So it's a step up in class for UCLA. Washington's been tested. Kalen DeBoer's got Michael Penix playing at a high level. I'm going to bet Washington here. I'm going to lay the 2.5 for the cheap money line price. I'm going to bet that tonight. And Tim, you can tune in on VSiN Friday as I'm hosting the show. And when Washington's trailing, I'll be throwing stuff around the studio, just like you do when you host the show and things aren't going your way.
No, cool, calm, and collected, Matt. Never. Let's get to a team that both you and I were on. Actually, we like to talk about bet regrets. We talked about Texas Tech. I took a little on the money line, but did not go harder on the Red Raiders. Now, they were a bit fortunate to win that game, I'll be honest, against Texas. And then Kansas State, a great call by you, as we mentioned last week. So I love the letdown spots. They're playing each other. So, unfortunately, I don't know where the letdown spot hits more. Maybe it's Texas Tech as they hit the road. And I think you can argue that Texas Tech was maybe a bit more fortunate to win their game as opposed to Kansas State, who I thought thoroughly dominated Oklahoma. So Kansas State laying 7.5 at home. This is a 11 a.m. local kick in Manhattan, Kansas. Kansas State does sneak into the top 25 this week, both coming off big wins, as mentioned. No play for me because I need to see Adrian Martinez do it again. I don't know who that guy was last week because he wasn't the guy that showed up the previous
That was the guy
games.
who was drawing Heisman Trophy bets 2 years ago in the summer.
He was phenomenal in that game. I mean, that was it a third or fourth down conversion where he breaks it for 60 yards. He was absolutely tremendous. Complete stay away from me because I would have loved to fade both of these teams this week.
Yeah, K-State's another team I was really high on in the preseason. Got over the win total of 6.5, and to lose that home game to Tulane, well, they make up for it last week with the win at Oklahoma. And I was hoping this would be the case, that Adrian Martinez would be a different quarterback under a new coach and a new system, and we didn't really see it until He went to Norman and beat the Sooners last week. I just think it's too much of a letdown spot here, Tim, to lay the points. And with me having a season win total bet on K-State over, I'm just going to sit back and hope K-State finds a way to win the game. It is a little bit of a letdown spot for the Red Raiders, too. They go on the road. But if you look, and he's one of my favorite coaches, and I apologize because I never know if it's Chris Kleiman or Chris Kleeman.
I think it's Kleiman.
I always say Kleiman.
Yeah, I think you're
heard
right.
Wes Reynolds last night say Kleeman. I said, okay, maybe I got it wrong. I thought it was Kleiman.
Wes probably called his sources in Fargo to get the proper pronunciation of Chris Kleiman. I'm going Kleiman. I'm sticking with Kleiman.
I've always been going with Kleiman, too, but I hate to be opposite Wes on pronunciations. Anyway, he's better as an underdog. He's definitely better as an underdog coach. I'm just going to pull for K-State to win the game for my win total. I'm staying away. This is one of those tricky handicaps where both teams are in letdown spots.
I do it every week on VSiN Primetime every Tuesday, point out the letdown spots, and unfortunately, both these teams won. We'll get to a couple letdown spots on some off-the-radar games, but the final spicy matchup, a game that you are intrigued by, includes your alma mater, Purdue. Going on the road to Minnesota, Purdue life and death with Florida Atlantic last week, but Aiden O'Connell did not play, their starting quarterback. And now here comes the hype train on Minnesota. The Golden Gophers now 4-0, Matt. People saying they're the clear-cut favorite to come out of the West in the Big Ten. They beat Michigan State. Kudos. I think Michigan State might be really bad. They're over a touchdown underdog on the road this week at Maryland. So now you're seeing Minnesota laying 12 against Purdue.
Well, I think that's an information situation, right?
With Aiden O'Connell.
It looked like early in the week Aiden O'Connell is not going to play. Circus Sports opened at 8. It goes up to 12, 12.5. Looked like it was headed to 13. The information I got last night is that unless something unforeseen happens, Aiden O'Connell is going to start in this game Saturday. So I'm taking the 12.5 here. And the Gophers, again, Tim, it's a case of a team playing a really weak non-conference schedule. You and I sat here 2 weeks ago and we said, hey, this is not the same Michigan State team with Kenneth Walker. And that was before the Spartans went to Seattle and got their butts kicked. And then how often do you see a Michigan State team at home in East Lansing almost get shut out? That was the case last week. Now, you could say that's a sign that Minnesota is a lot better than expected. I would say if you made a number on this game, I didn't see any. It's not like this is a game of the year type of situation with Purdue at Minnesota. But if you made this number before the year, Tim, what would you make it? Minnesota, maybe 6?
Yeah, I would say around a touchdown because they're on the road. And Matt, I want to point something out. Overreactions are something that you can play into. Why I'm playing Iowa State this week. I think the market has gone a little too nuts on Kansas. They're a good team, but maybe they're not worthy of only being a 3-point underdog to Iowa State.
Right.
Purdue week 1 was right there with Penn State. Penn State
won the game.
Penn State continues to impress. I had a 3.5 ticket, no big deal. We lost by 4. No, not a big deal at all.
That's rude. Should have won the game straight up.
Late touchdown. And Penn State went down to Auburn, won by 29. Penn State is a team that some people think can challenge Ohio State when they come to town. And that was a 4-point or 3.5-point spread. Right. And now Minnesota is laying 12. So if you do your, math, it would be roughly 9 on a neutral. And then you're saying Minnesota would be a 5-point favorite at Purdue. So I think this is an overreaction. If Aiden O'Connell is playing, I would ride with you. I would boil her up, hit that big-ass drum. Chris Ottman-Bell, also the leading receiver for Minnesota, has been lost for the year, something that was pointed out last week. But, people are going to forget that their go-to receiver, really talented player, he's done for the year. So wouldn't disagree whatsoever with you. This seems like market has gone a little too overboard on Minnesota here.
Well, I'm just hoping the information I have is correct that O'Connell's going to play. If it is, I think you're getting a really good number here.
All right, let's get to some off-the-radar games.
Off the radar.
All right, Matt, we'll rifle through these. A couple Friday games and maybe a buy low or a sell high. I'll start 7 o'clock Friday night, Tulane at Houston. I've been disappointed with Houston so far this year. Dana Holgerson's team, many believe they would just run away with the AAC. Has not been the case so far. I haven't played this game. It would be dog or pass for me. Tulane, I know, lost to Southern Miss. I thought that was a letdown spot coming off a big win over Kansas State. Tulane proved that they've got a pretty darn good defense, especially you think back to that Kansas State game and then what Kansas State was able to do on the road at Norman. So it would be dog or pass for me on Friday night against Houston. And then another letdown spot would be Middle Tennessee at home. Middle Tennessee State goes out and absolutely thumps Miami. Rick Stockstill is talking trash because he's a Florida State guy, and they beat Miami. First win in school history over a top 25 team. The only worry I have here is that UTSA, they have a lot of issues on their offensive line. Their coach continues to talk about it. I really want to play UTSA. I might just play the money line. I'm looking, you can find a minus 175 out there, but I really want UTSA in this spot because maybe this is just a little too much love for the Blue Raiders. A Blue Raiders team that lost week 1, Matt, to James Madison 44-7.
Yeah, you're right. And the problem with UTSA is what you mentioned. Jeff Traylor talked about it before the Texas game. Top 4 offensive tackles were down.
Yeah.
Going into that game, the Roadrunners competitive in the first half and kind of fell apart in the second half. I'm probably going to stay away. I like UTSA's team quite a bit, but I really don't want to lay 4.5 on the road. I was surprised that Middle Tennessee just took it to Miami like that. Of course, how can you not be surprised when you're talking about a 25-point favorite? I lean Tulane in this game. I'm not a Dana Holgerson guy either. I talked about that. I like to fade and bet against Holgerson, and I think Tulane – you're going to see more of the Tulane team that went to K-State and not the team that was in the letdown spot last week. So I'm probably going to play the green wave. And as far as we talked about Washington, UCLA. I don't really have an opinion on San Diego State, Boise State, but a total of 39 indicates that's going to be an ugly defensive type of game. And San Diego State just hasn't shown much offense. That game against, how lucky were the Aztecs to beat Toledo last week? And I'm kind of tempted to bet New Mexico, believe it or not. Catching 14.5. Who knows, it'll be 15 maybe by tomorrow. You still got Rocky Long, one of the best defensive coaches in college football, and a UNLV team that's not accustomed to being a two-touchdown favorite. So I'm kind of looking at the dog. I might end up playing the Lobos in that late Friday night game.
Yeah, Jonathan Von Tobel came on VSiN Primetime on Wednesday, a noted Rebels believer. And he said he had to take the points. He took the points with New Mexico in that spot. All right, a couple more games, a couple plays you still have out there. I'll get to one that I have, Matt. I think it's another letdown spot. It's Cal versus Washington State. I think this is a really tough spot for Washington State. They had that game won against Oregon. And anyone who took the points of Washington State, you deserve that cover. If anyone says that Oregon State was a bad beat, you should slap them in the face. Say, no, you were down 12 with 4 minutes to go, and you somehow were in the cover zone. So happy for anyone who had Washington State to cover in that game. But, Matt, how do you get back up from that after just having your guts ripped out? And this Cal team's actually pretty good.
It's improved offensively.
49-31 last week against Arizona. Jack Plummer, threw for 3 touchdowns. And this running back, Jaden Ott, no relation to our friend Jimmy Ott down in Baton Rouge, 274 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns. And I'll tell you this, Matt, Washington State, they are not great at stopping the pass. Over 600 yards of offense by Oregon last week. And Cal's got a couple receivers. Jeremiah Hunter, 305 yards receiving already this year, I should say. J. Michael Sturdivant, he had some success against Notre Dame. That Notre Dame close call, Matt, looks a little bit better now after their performance against Arizona. And then the final note, shout out to our friend the Bear again. 6 seasons under Justin Wilcox, Cal 24-9 ATS as an underdog with 13 outright wins, and of course a 13.5-point underdog in South Bend, and had an opportunity to force overtime or maybe win the game on a Hail Mary. So I'm taking the 4 with Cal, and I'll put a little on the money line too with the Golden Bears. Oh, by the way, Washington State next week on the road to USC, so could be looking ahead a little bit. Give me Cal in an underdog role here on Saturday afternoon up at Washington State.
Cal Bears team definitely looks like it's on the upswing. Justin Wilcox, one of the best defensive coaches. Coach. I talked about Rocky Long, Justin Wilcox right there in that same elite class. I think it is a tricky spot for Washington State. You're right. If you bet the Cougars took the points last week, that would have been a crime if you didn't get the cover. So fortunately, it worked out that way. Yeah, it is a tricky spot for State here, and I would lean Cal, but I have not played this game right now. I'm not sure anybody else picked up on that, but Tim called him Jack O'Connell. And last year, Jack Plummer was the backup to Aiden O'Connell. So very good,
Put
Tim.
them all together.
I like how you did that. That was pretty good.
I just have Purdue always on my mind. All right, let's get to a couple games that you've played. And one that I actually played early on in this week, and my partner Sean King called me crazy. When Nebraska was under a field goal at open, Matt, I had to take the Cornhuskers. Indiana's terrible.
I laid the 2.
I think I got 2.5. It opened 1, and it immediately went to 5, I think, here at Circa.
I didn't even see it open 1. I thought it opened 2. That was the first number I saw.
It was the first play I had of the week. I laid it with the Corn. Night game there. I know I was on Nebraska with you against Oklahoma. It was a disaster. But Indiana, folks, they're that bad. And I'll point this out. Indiana, I don't think had really much business beating Illinois. I don't think they had business beating Western Kentucky. So give me the boys
Indiana
from
trailed
Lincoln.
Idaho at halftime.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, right now, Matt, let me ask you this, because you laid it early. The number right now.
4.5 or 5.
Yeah, is 5.5's out there, too. What would be your stop point? Do you think anything under a touchdown? I think Nebraska has a chance to blow them out.
I think Nebraska should win this game by double digits.
They should.
I mean, you had a week off. Cornhuskers had a week off to regroup after the Oklahoma embarrassment. Hey, Indiana is not Oklahoma. And the Hoosiers don't win on the Big Ten road too often. I was really surprised that Circa Sports opened this number. You said 1. I think
it was 1.
I saw Nebraska 2. That was the first number I said. Wow, less than a field goal.
It was 2. You're right. It was 2.
I made Nebraska a 6-point favorite in this game, and I probably would have still laid it. I think the situation sets up off the bye week for the Huskers. You're going to get their best effort. And like I said, Indiana's not known to be a team that plays well on the road, and you're still talking about a Nebraska team. I know the preseason numbers were wrong, Tim, but Nebraska's season win total was 7.5. Indiana's season win total, 4?
I played under 4.5. And I'm sweating it right now because they won 3 games already.
Yeah, 2 of those, Indiana should not have beat Illinois, should not have beat Western Kentucky.
I think it was Bill Conley who, after 3 games, looked at where teams should be. Have they exceeded or underachieved? And Indiana, after 3 games, had exceeded win expectancy by 1.6 games, which is just, as an under 4.5 ticket holder, makes you feel phenomenal inside, warm and fuzzy right there. So do me a solid here, Nebraska. Take care of business. And then the last one we'll hit on here, Matt. Auburn and LSU. You have backed LSU. You backed them a couple weeks ago. I agreed, and they took care of business. They beat Mississippi State at home. Auburn is ready to fire their head coach, Brian Harsin. If Missouri's running back doesn't drop the ball running into the end zone, maybe they do fire Brian Harsin. So I got to imagine not many people are racing to take the points at home for Auburn, but is this a spot, Matt, where it's just a little bit too much? You're looking at 8 points for Auburn at home against LSU.
Yeah, and a couple days ago, this number was 9, and it looked like it was headed to 10. And I was on with Mitch and Paul on Follow the Money, and I said, I'm taking Auburn plus 9. And I put about a half unit bet on it because I thought maybe, hey, this is going to go to 10. Nobody's going to want to bet Auburn. And don't kid yourself. Brian Harsin's done, no matter what happens. Auburn's 3-1, ugly wins against San Jose. Missouri, it's just an offense that's got nothing going on right now, 217 total yards. I think Robbie Ashford could make a difference. You had to get T.J. Finley out of there at quarterback. Robbie Ashford is a 6'3", dual-threat freshman who's got a chance to maybe mature and grow up a little bit. Think Bigsby's still one of the best running backs in the SEC, but you can stack the box right now. He has not been that effective. I'm going on trends here. And a little bit of information that, and this is not going to surprise you, Tim, I've heard from 2 insiders that these LSU players absolutely hate Brian Kelly. And it's not just, Jaden Daniels probably likes him because he made him a starting quarterback and he's reviving his career a little bit. But I'm told the whole team hates Kelly, and they don't want to play for him. And everybody inside the building in the athletic department hates Brian Kelly.
Oh.
So there's a lot of negativity going on. Hey, but if Kelly wins this game, he's 4-1 with a 1-point loss. I still say he's a great coach. Point spread history here. It's just series history in conference. LSU does not play well at Auburn. You go back 10 years, LSU is 2-3 at Auburn. The wins by 2 and 1 point. The losses by 34, 37, and 5 points. I think this is an Auburn team. Let's say a couple weeks ago, Auburn's a 3-point home dog to Penn State. Now it's 8 to LSU. I took the 9 with Auburn. I'll say still take the 8.5. I'll go with the home dog here. There's not much to like, but sometimes you got to play these ugly home dogs.
Yeah, A.J. McCarron said this week that he had already been fired, Brian Harsin.
Oh, he's done.
Yeah, he won't be coming back, but maybe he'll get a 7-point loss for Matt, and that'll make him happy. Let's get to a recap here of our top plays.
Best bet recap.
All right, Matt, I will run through mine real quickly again. Took the 4 with Cal on the Palouse, letdown spot there. I'm with you on Mississippi State, but I'm going to pair it with Iowa State. Moneyline parlay plus 165 there, so hopefully we can cash a little plus money. Some smaller plays. I mentioned Nebraska. I laid it early in the week, so doesn't count for you for the podcast. I took 22 at Texas State. That's a hold your nose, hold on to your butt special there. James Madison coming off a huge win over Appalachian State. I think Wes Reynolds wrote that up for VSiN.com. And then haven't decided yet on Friday, but a lean on UTSA would probably go money line. A little nervous just because of the injuries that they have. So that would be my plays this week. Matt, your plays?
All right, we're going Arkansas plus 17.5, Iowa plus 11. Tim, those are going to be the half unit plays this week. Okay?
No, I'll join you on Iowa for a smaller play too. Yeah.
It's hard.
What could go wrong?
It's hard to bet too much on Iowa. Arkansas and Iowa half unit, big home dogs. We're going with Oregon State plus 10.5, Mississippi State minus 3, Nebraska, we'll say minus 5, Auburn plus 8, Purdue plus 12.5.
All right, there you go. Those are Matt's plays. Adam Burke has chimed in, and he is rolling with all MAC teams. No, I'm just kidding. That was Matt Youmans' prediction there.
I said one Sun Belt team.
Yeah, he is going with the Washington Huskies on Friday night.
Okay.
Lay the 2.5 there. He's very patriotic this week. He's going with Army against Georgia State. Felt like this was a really bad situational spot for the Panthers, who are still winless, by the way. He is going to lay the 7.5 with Army. He's also going to take the over in Navy Air Force, which actually has been the move so far this week, Matt. This opened as low as 34.5 at Circa Sports. It has bet up to 38. He will take the over there in Navy and Air Force. And then he is going, I actually like this play. We didn't talk about this game. He's riding with the Fighting Brett Bielemas. He's going to take the 7 on the road at Wisconsin, a 11 a.m. local kick there up at Camp Randall. Wisconsin coming off the loss there. I don't hate that bet. I think they could run the ball against Wisconsin. Bielema obviously has history with the Badgers, so Adam Burke riding with the Illinois Illini on the road catching the 7. All right, that's going to do it. We will be back in your feed on Sunday. Matt, JVT, Jonathan Von Tobel, that is, will have lines revealed. That'll be a 2 p.m. Eastern show live on VSiN and then in your VSiN College Football Betting podcast. But for Matt Youmans, I am Tim Murray. We will chat with you next week. Have yourself a winning weekend.